Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a podcast and videocast from univrm.com. Today is an opinion article titled World War III Will Not Stop War, but Will It Help? Contributing authors to this opinion article include John Sturr, Dennis Bowman, Asher Brown, and Anonymous 23. Anonymous 23. In this part of the opinion article, two primary calculations addressed: the ability to carry out war and the sustained capacity to continue warring are the first part of the calculation. The top five military powers referenced by globalfirepower.com include 1. the US, 2. Russia, 3. China, 4. India, and 5. the United Kingdom. All of the above countries meet the first part of the calculation. The top four more so than the United Kingdom because they have considerable land mass, but all are nuclear, biological, and chemical powerhouses with extensive infrastructures. The remaining nuclear powers include France, Israel, Pakistan, and North Korea, with the countries of Turkey, South Korea, Japan, Brazil, Germany, Ukraine, Australia, and Canada able to quickly create similar arsenals were they so inclined. To a greater or lesser degree, all these countries have extensive infrastructures, but lack, with the exceptions of Canada, Australia, and Brazil, the natural resources for a sustained war. The second part of the calculation is the degree to which the militarily powerful countries will become involved in an allied state conflict. Using the past 100 years as a guideline, the historic record proves all are willing to do so. The final calculation is the global tension between large population segments, civil wars not included. The Middle East is unstable. Asia presents multiple points of conflict between India, Pakistan, China, Russia, Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia, North and South Korea, still technically at war with each other. Australia is not technically part of Asia, but due to its proximity has the potential to be involved in any conflict. Brazil is by far the reigning power in South America with no serious threats and historically shies away from larger conflicts. North America, with the overwhelming superiority of the US and Canada, not in a geographically tense region, but both countries have historic trends of global adventurism. With the exclusion of Antarctica, this leaves Europe as the remaining continent not addressed. Europe, like North America, a long record of assisting allies in war and engaging in war whether on its territory or elsewhere. The fragmentation and hostility between religions not discounted. We call this the "let there be peace, now go kill the infidels" factor. Switzerland has the most extensive civilian defensive infrastructure in the world and traditionally remains neutral. In our opinion, and as proven by historical records, all current weapons, in addition to the development of new weapons, are used in war, and as war escalates, the use of weapons of power escalates. The next part of the article is from Dennis Bowman. Thomas Friedman wrote an article on 10 March 2012 for the New York Times containing, in my opinion, the most salient points with respect to any potential World War III and the aftermath of the hypothetical war. Taiwan is a barren rock and a typhoon-laden sea with no natural resources to live off of. It even has to import sand and gravel from China for construction, yet it has the fourth largest financial reserves in the world, because rather than digging in the ground and mining whatever comes up, Taiwan has mined its 23 million people, their talent, energy, and intelligence, men and women. There is few, if any, natural resources, including no oil, no iron ore, no forests, no diamonds, no gold, just a few small deposits of coal and natural gas. Perhaps because of that, they developed habits and culture of honing people's skills, which turns out to be the most valuable and only truly renewable resource in the world today. A team from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, released a study mapping the correlation between performance on the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA exam. Every 2 years, the exam tests math, science, and reading comprehension skills of 15-year-olds in 65 countries. In short, how well does your next generation of people do on math compared with how much oil you pump or how many diamonds you dig? The results indicated there was a significant negative relationship between the money countries extract from national resources and the knowledge and skills of their population, said Andreas Schleicher, who oversees the PISA exams for the OECD. This is a global pattern that holds across 65 countries that took part in the PISA assessment. Oil and PISA don't mix. There's a hypertext link to the study on our website. Israel has one of the most innovative economies, and its population enjoys a standard of living most of the oil-rich countries in the region are not able to offer. So hold the oil and pass the books, according to Schleicher and the latest PISA results. Students in Singapore, Finland, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Japan stand out as having high PISA scores and few natural resources, while Qatar and Kazakhstan stand out as having the highest oil rents and the lowest PISA scores. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Algeria, Bahrain, Iran, and Syria stood out the same way in a similar 2007 Trends in International Mathematics and Science study. While interestingly, students from Lebanon, Jordan, and Turkey, also Middle East states with few natural resources, scored better. Canada, Australia, and Norway, also countries with high levels of natural resources, still score well on PISA, in large part, argues Schleicher, because all three countries have established deliberate policies of saving and investing those resource rents and not just consuming them. Economists have long known about Dutch disease, which happens when a country becomes so dependent on exporting natural resources that its currency soars in value and, as a result, its domestic manufacturing gets crushed as cheap imports flood in and exports become too expensive. What the PISA team is revealing is a related disease. Societies that get addicted to their natural resources seem to develop parents and young people who lose some of the instincts, habits, and incentives for doing work and honing skills. By contrast, says Schleicher, in countries with little in the way of natural resources, Finland, Singapore, or Japan, education has strong outcomes and a high status, at least in part because the public at large has understood that the country must live by its knowledge and skills, and that these depend on the quality of education. Skills decide life chances, and nothing else is going to rescue them, so they build a whole culture and education system around it. K.R. Sridhar, the founder of the Silicon Valley fuel cell company Bloom Energy, likes to say, when you don't have resources, you become resourceful. There is an important message for the industrialized world in this study, too. In these difficult economic times, it is tempting to buttress our own standards of living today by incurring even greater financial liabilities for the future. To be sure, there is a role for stimulus in a prolonged recession, but the only sustainable way is to grow our way out by giving more people the knowledge and skills to compete, collaborate, and connect in a way that drives our countries forward, argues Schleicher. In sum, says Schleicher, knowledge and skills have become the global currency of 21st century economies, but there is no central bank that prints this currency. Everyone has to decide on their own how much they will print. Sure, it's great to have oil, gas, and diamonds. They can buy jobs, but they'll weaken your society in the long run unless they're used to build schools and a culture of lifelong learning. The thing that will keep you moving forward, says Schleicher, is always what you bring to the table yourself. The next part of the article is from Asher Brown. The world is not rational. One hopes there is no World War III, and what happens after any such disaster is doomed to create an unknown amount of time in which the technologically sophisticated become a superclass of human. In a purely scientific examination, the damage to the ecosystem catastrophic and similar to most mass extinction events such as supervolcanoes, large asteroid or meteor collisions, massive tectonic movements, and extreme solar radiation bombardment. In a man-made disaster, the likelihood of nuclear, chemical, and biological agents used in both targeted and general scenarios cannot be understated. It is now possible to create lethal viruses without cures that attack specific genome markers of any and all types. In simple terms, this means genome marker X selected to eliminate virally anyone with that marker. The biological diversity of humans makes this problematic due to all the junk DNA and genome sequences, but it is not a stretch of the imagination to know regimes under war stresses may, as they have historically, use whatever means at their disposal to strike enemies. Countermeasures undoubtedly deployed to whatever scientific threats in time of war. While not a military strategist, the high ground will play the most significant role. There is an infinite amount of space above Earth's atmosphere. It is less than 2 decades since the primary protocol of deterrence, referred to as MAD, or mutually assured destruction. It is highly probable, using relatively simple mathematical formulas, to implement target pool, as in the game, to deflect larger and larger rocks, to pass directed at Earth, or even create, effectively, mass drivers. Like previous mass extinction events, some will survive, and until the survivors become those who remain, following any asymmetric warfare thereafter, then perhaps humankind will outgrow war. The next part of the article is from John Sturr. World War III is not a term, in my opinion, applicable in today's world or from historic records. There has never been a war involving every country on the planet. Despite that fact, there has never been a war that directly affects non-combatants to the degree any modern World War III will entail. Unleashing weapons of mass destruction anywhere on the planet will affect everyone. Books or iPads, blankets and bread, more effective than bombs, bullets, and bombast. However, there is little hope that truism becomes effective until power, money, and control, replaced by enlightenment, resource allocation, and uncontrolled creativity. The more civilized we have become, the less free we have become, with rewards going to those who seek the extreme of the law of the jungle. Perhaps the next step of evolution is planetary emigration by like-minded tribes, as it used to be, only this time not on the planet itself. Until then, in my opinion, a continuation of current events is likely, with an ongoing war of the disempowered against those currently in power, and the disestablishment of resistance is futile, you will be absorbed. This has been copyright 2012 univrm.com, trademarked, all rights reserved. At univrm.com, we create original content with humor and satire on current event news, opinion articles, economy articles, science current events, and our science fiction book series titled Change Hope. As an advertisement, please remember univrm.com offering our science fiction book series, Change Hope, released as a series on a chapter and book-by-book basis, like the old Amazing Stories magazine. You can purchase the book by going to www.univrm.com/downloads/. It's available in all ebook formats and as an audiobook. You can listen to this article via podcast at the iTunes Store by subscribing to univrm.com, or read it on Facebook at the UNIVRM channel. You can also listen or subscribe to our articles via videocast or podcast on YouTube on the UNIVRM channel. This has been a podcast and videocast brought to you by univrm.com, and we look forward to bringing you more articles in future.